Thank you. All right. Thanks everyone for joining us for the August 14th Wildfire Cluster meeting. Very excited to have Everett Hinkley today. And it was good to see many of you in Seattle at the ESIP summer meeting. We had a great wildfire session with Claire Sturm from San Diego Supercomputer Center, Marissa Christensen from Climate Wildfire Institute, and Nick Maggio from University of Oregon presenting. There are a couple things coming up. The ESIP is going to have a highlights meeting that's going to be a 90-minute session recapping what happened at the summer meeting, and I'm very much looking forward to that, especially to capture all the things that I missed because I was in other sessions. Also, I wanted to highlight from Claire Sturm's presentation at the summer meeting, the Wildfire Commons is kind of in a launch phase for a collaborative platform. And I think that that will be a very interesting program for many of the people who are participating today. I'm going to add some other links to the chat. And also, we're restarting doing the having a Google Docs notes that kind of is persistent record of our meetings, and it's a way kind of to communicate content. So Douglas put the link in the chat already. With that, I'll introduce Everett. Everett was the recently retired from being the national program lead for the Forest Service and the National Remote Sensing Program. And he was an organizer of the Tactical Fire Science Remote Sensing Program, which was a phenomenal conference, and I gained a lot from it, from the last two. I first became aware of Everett's work through I believe the ESIP Ag and Climate Cluster. But one of the things that I think, a broad theme in this summer's meeting has been the response to the disruption of capacity at federal agencies at all levels. And I think in particular, with the wildfire program, we're seeing very confusing evolution and, a departure of a tremendous amount of competence and experience from our federal partners. And one of the things I think that this really brings organizations like ESIP, it really elevates the need for the civil society organizations that are managing data stewardship. And I'm looking forward to seeing Everett's perspectives on where we go forward from here, and how do we build wildfire resilience with having this, this tremendous loss of experience within many of our federal partners through this program. So with that, Everett, take it away.
Yeah, thanks, Tim. And I'm glad to be able to speak to this group today. And thanks for mentioning the meeting that you had, I guess it was like 2 weeks ago in Seattle. Amanda Armstrong was there from NASA, talking about the Applied Earth Observation Innovation Partnership and the connection to ESIP that we're trying to establish. Dr. Vince Ambrosia and I'm going to go ahead and turn off my my video to save bandwidth here. But Dr. Vince Ambrosia and I co-chaired the Tactical Fire Remote Sensing Advisory Committee for 19 years, and it was very, very well attended. Lots of great interaction and collaboration and development of capabilities and exploration of capabilities. So, but I'll go through sort of the history here. So let's see. So the group started out small with 2 co-chairs, and Vince and myself, and a small group of remote sensing scientists, some from the Forest Service, some from NASA. The initial focus of the group was on remote sensing support to active, and I think of that as the tactical phase of wildfire. But the scope of the meetings quickly grew beyond that, and a decision was made early on to invite vendors. And we invited vendors, were given clear direction that the meetings were not to be used as a sales opportunity. So not to get on their soapbox and be there to sell, but rather for the exchange of everyone's benefit, for information sharing. And this was our big tent approach. And it worked beyond our wildest dreams in terms of the information exchange that happened at those meetings. And the vendors were really good about not overstepping those bounds. Around about 2018, Vince and I thought it would be a good idea to add some of the other agencies. So we invited Birgit Peterson from USGS to be a co-chair, and then Mike Pavlonis from NOAA. That seemed like a logical extension of the co-chairmanship of this group, since it had gotten so big. It was designed as a community of practice. I really like communities of practice. I like the open forum concept where we invite professionals from the government sector, whether it's federal or state, from the academic sector, international, and also the vendor community. It's really important to bring these people together to understand what the needs and opportunities are. So this group met twice yearly from 2004. The last meeting was in April of 2023. And that was a largely in-person meeting out at NASA Ames in California there. We met to discuss the developments and results of ongoing investigations for new and evolving capabilities that improve support to fire observation and ultimately wildfire management. So it was well supported from the beginning, and it grew very quickly. We ended up having 600 names on our mailing list, and I was always culling names as people retired and adding new names. So it was a unique forum for collaboration, information sharing, and promoting remote sensing advancement to the wildland fire community. In the 20 years, roughly 20 years that we existed, we evolved to support the needs of broader wildland fire management community, not just the Forest Service, also broadened out beyond tactical fire to pre-fire, fire detection, active fire, post-fire, fire behavior. And so as I mentioned, by 2023, we had 4 co-chairs from the different agencies that you see there. Our original meetings there was less than 30 people, but we quickly grew to have 600 members and generally around 200 people in the meetings. So very active, very engaged. In the summer of 2023, the Forest Service Fire and Aviation Branch asked that there be a tactical pause on the TFRSAC meetings, allowing time for internal discussions to improve the structure of the meetings to better meet the needs of the wildland fire management community. And I accepted this, and I thought it was, a reasonable thing to ask to kind of do some restructuring and rescoping, and to make sure that we were really satisfying the people that we were purporting to serve, which is the end users in the fire management community. The internal discussions never took place in any meaningful way, and so the TFRSAC group was quietly mothballed in mid-2024, and this was kind of an unhappy thing for me. But in my opinion, the need for the forum still exists. A recent survey, which is still active, and I'm going to put up some links here that you're welcome to take the link from. I just checked a few minutes ago. I've had 84 responses in the past 2 weeks, and there's some really great responses to the, I might show that if I have a few minutes here. I brought up the spreadsheet, but lots of great feedback from people that would like to see the forum continue, and providing, what their areas of interest are. The responses have been overwhelmingly positive and supportive for a new forum to be stood up. So I'm really happy about that. We also decided that the name had kind of gotten a little bit stale in terms of what the group is doing. So Vince and I talked about it a little bit, and he came up with the name Wildfire Observations Technology Working Group. So we were thinking about rebranding this, and I think it makes sense to do this. But basically, the focus and intent of this new group will remain the same. Working on different phases of wildfire. How do we leverage remote sensing to improve the the workings, the decision making that goes on at the wildfire, and let's see. So I started thinking about where do we put this group so that, that it makes sense. And the ESIP collaborative areas seemed like a really good place for this. I've had lots of conversations with Dave Jones and Doug Rao and others about ESIP and what it does and how it works and so forth. And also working with Susan Shingledecker. I know that she left recently, but we had lots of discussions with her about the Applied Earth Observation Innovation Partnership Group. And so, I'd like to ask this group that's here today, to provide any feedback on setting up the this new working group as a ESIP cluster. And I don't want to conflict with this group here, the one that's meeting today. But, so I'm looking to see what sort of fit there is and not wanting to conflict with anything that already exists. Some of the things, this is the overarching umbrella that we're looking at: the technical issues, institutional issues, funding issues, bridging the gap between research and operations. That's sort of the 800-pound gorilla that's always been there. Lots of discussions about that, making sure that the work that's being done in research eventually translates into improved operational support, making connections between end users and those with capabilities. I'm going to show a slide here in just a minute that shows sort of the graphic notional focus there. And this has been one of our underlying themes right from the start: identifying and sharing needs, and what are the gaps in the information flow to the incidents, and sharing with them the art of the possible. Sometimes they don't know what to ask for because they don't know what the new capabilities are. And that's our job as remote sensing people to say, hey, have you thought about using this data set or data from this satellite? And these are some of the key needs that have been identified by the fire management community. Those are the people that we're serving. So we really look for their feedback. Detect remote fires sooner, being able to track resources. And we always give the Yarnell Hill fire as an example of where that would have been really helpful. Doing monitoring and forecasting, early detections, modeling and forecasting growth of fires, monitoring fires in real time. That's really important. And that's really important, especially in some of the dynamic fires that we're seeing out in the Western US. Knowing where the perimeters are in real time. Where do we want to move resources to? Where do we want to move people away from, to keep the population safe? And finally, fast moving fires are a problem for people in their homes. And the Marshall Fire, which I think that was December 31st, 2023, that was in up near Boulder. And it was a grass fire basically, but there was 100-mile-an-hour winds, no snow cover. And so that fire moved very quickly, and it was really hard to help the incident managers understand where the fire was and where it was moving to and where to get people out of their homes in advance of the fire. So this is my thank you slide. I do have some follow-on slides. This is my little QR code here. If anyone wants to take my survey, it takes about 5 minutes, maybe a little bit less. But I'd really appreciate anyone on this call jumping onto the survey and maybe looking for ways that, where I can integrate with ESIP and how to stand up this new group in a meaningful way that doesn't conflict with existing meetings that are happening. So I think the TIFRSAC was kind of unique. And so I'd like to continue that. I'm retired now, but I'm willing to put time and energy into this. And so let me just jump to my backup slides. This slide is probably 10 years old. So I co-chaired the Tactical Fire Remote Sensing Advisory Committee. I also co-chaired the Thermal Working Group, which was on the classified side of the house. And that's where we developed things like FireGuard, Firehawk, and Hawkeye. Those were 3 capabilities that we developed on the classified to help the fire managers leveraging national systems. And you'll see the focus there is largely classified. The Thermal Working Group has also sort of winked out of existence because of some things that happened last year. But, that's another one of those things that it's just sort of this internal politics that This is the graphic that I wanted to show. We had the Tactical Fire Remote Sensing Advisory Committee working on unclassified, the thermal working group working the classified side of the house, working with someone in the middle from the fire community, where I would really like to have had a TIFRSAC steering committee to help us guide the content and direction of the meetings to better meet the needs of the fire community. But that, that's water under the bridge. But this is sort of my notional concept here. Yeah, these are some of our national systems, Hawkeye fire detection and reporting. This is something that I developed with NASIC back around 2012 to look for new fire starts around the country. And out of that, developed the Fire Guard program, which is providing perimeters on fires every 10 minutes to the incidents. That's supported by the National Guard. And the Firehawk fire mapping capability, that's been around for decades, probably 2.5 decades. And it basically produces incident maps that are very similar to the ones that come out of the National Infrared Operations Group in Boise. Remote sensing is a toolbox. We have a number of different remote sensing tools. So Vince and I started exploring unmanned aircraft back in the early 2000s. We've been working with the National Infrared Operations Group, or NIROPS, for the manned aircraft, developing downlink systems for them. And we really looked into the unmanned aircraft. I thought that was going to take off, but it's taken a long time for unmanned aircraft to really be integrated into the incident support program. We use satellite systems. Ground observations are important as well. Out in California, there's a significant network of manned and unmanned towers. In other places in the West, they're looking to develop these. Some of those unmanned towers are using machine learning to identify smoke and then report those observations within a few minutes of observing. So those are all important. And you see on the left-hand side, you see the different fire phases: pre-fire, fire ignition, new fire starts, active fire. That's what I consider to be tactical support, fire perimeters, hotspots, intense fire. Those are the things that get mapped. And then after the fire is put out, what is the severity of the fire across the landscape? Because it varies pretty significantly. Also, a couple of years ago, I started looking at artificial intelligence and machine learning, primarily to support fire mapping, because I feel like that's one of the low-hanging fruit applications that can save us a lot of time and money. Looking at new fire starts from multiple sensors, recognizing smoke with a low false alarm rate, drawing points, lines, and polygons on active fires. That's what the infrared interpreters do. They sit there looking at a thermal image, they draw the points, lines, and polygons, create a shape file, and send that off to the incident. I also feel like we can start doing a better job on the predictive fire behavior modeling, and to do a better job with the models and the parameters within those models by looking forensically at past fires to see how those fires behaved, understanding the terrain, the weather patterns that were active at the time of the fire, and also the fuels. And the fuels is another key piece of fire behavior, and it's one that measuring fuel condition and fuel type it's a pretty tedious and difficult process. So I'd really like to push the AI machine learning to help support improving some of our data flows from both just the active fire mapping piece and then the predictive fire mapping. I also put the slide in. I don't remember where I got this, but I got this a couple years ago because I felt this intensively from inside the government, that there's a lot of this inertia that we have trouble overcoming. Try to understand why there isn't more rapid adaptation of new technologies that we're developing. Like the unmanned aircraft is a good example. It took years for us to get integration into the fire support functions. And sorry, I was being distracted here by some of the chats here, but I'll get to those in a minute. let's see, lack of funding, comfort with existing technologies and ways of doing business. People get very comfortable with the ways that, they have the information coming in, and they don't want to disrupt their flow. And especially when it comes to things like wildfire management, you don't want something to break at the worst possible time. And granted, we have lots of challenging contracting and acquisition processes and rules. A lack of understanding of the art of the possible. And that's really my job and the job of the remote sensing community, to help the end users understand what's new and available that can be integrated into processes that will help the decision-making at the fire. The last bullet there, distress built up from years of being burned by sales pitches on silver bullet solutions. That's a real thing. And I understood that years ago when Vince and I started the TIFRSAC meetings. And that was one of the reasons why we wanted to have the TIFRSAC meetings, because we wanted to have a better understanding between people that were developing solutions and the people that actually needed capabilities. So the need for expediency and efficiency within government agencies should be a driving force for needed change. And I think that that's especially true right now. And I like the term that was used in the introduction to the meeting, the disruption of capacity that we're seeing right now. So one of the things that we discussed when we were talking about reformulating the TIFRSAC was, how do we want to restructure this meeting so that it provides more value to people that are developing capabilities? How do we communicate RFIs, small business innovative research grants, and STTRs to people that are developing capabilities? Do we want to have prize competitions? The incubators, accelerators, industry clusters? How do we operationalize these efforts? And I felt like there was little or no connective tissue between the community that needs the stuff. We worked to distill needs and gaps, but there was sort of this gap there between what the needs were and what the opportunities were. The innovation activity is really the forum, and having that close communication with the incident command structure and the people that fight wildfires, the situation unit leaders, really understanding what their information needs are, and helping them to understand what the art of the possible is. Okay, I think that's my last slide there. So I'll leave this up here if anyone who wants to snap a picture of this and go to the survey. But I'm going to go ahead and just bring over the chat window here. Let's see. Sign up for the wildfire cluster. Mary Ellen Miller, who I know very well, she put perimeters every 10 minutes, and that comes from the Fire Guard program that Sandy Weaver and I developed 10 plus years ago, leveraging national systems to be able to pump out these updates to perimeters every 10 minutes. The first time we really kind of opened the aperture on that was during the campfire, but for the campfire, we did not have the authority to release data that we were seeing for fires. I think that was 2018. Someone can correct me if I'm wrong there, but that sounds about right. But we were not allowed to release information on the campfire, even though we could watch the progress of the fire there, and it was really pretty frightening. But so that when we first started, we had the authority to release perimeters every 15 minutes, and then they upgraded it to 10 minutes. And the data that's coming out of FireGuard is not as positionally accurate as say something like Firehawk or the National Infrared Operations Group. But when you start having something every 10 minutes, you really start to get a handle on the rate of spread and direction of spread, which is really important to the people on the ground, even if maybe you're lacking a little bit of accuracy. What else do we have here? Is there any federal agency that wants to start a wildfire test bed or offer partnerships? Not sure what's going on with NOAA wildfire test bed. Yeah, Dave. this is one of the things, we're sort of in this information vacuum now, and the disruption on capacity and ability to do things. It's hard for me now that I've been outside the government. Let's see, May, June, July, and so I've been out of the government for 3.5 months, and I really feel like I'm disconnected from understanding what's going on. What are people being asked to do? Has a lot of the work that's been done in the past in terms of developing capabilities, is that in sort of a stall mode right now, waiting for direction? That's a really hard thing, being outside the government and not being able to get a good handle. And that's why I think a forum like the TIFRSAC, or the reincarnation of that, the Wildfire Observation Technology Working Group. The acronym for that doesn't roll off the tongue quite as well as the TIFRSAC, but so I guess Tim, I'd like to open up to any questions or suggestions. Dave's
open to questions. People can raise their hands. I have a comment that kind of transitions into a question. And one of the observations I have for how effective TIFRSAC was it was a community that improved the balance between vendors and their customers. And a lot of times, especially working with smaller and sometimes NGO-led collaboratives that are maybe partners of federal agencies, the federal agencies would end up as being the kind of long-term memory of the technical evolution in a space. And a lot of the people who have specific experience are now no longer in the roles they've had. So, one of the things I really worry is the balance between the vendors and their customers for some of these technical solutions are really not allowing the vendors, frankly, to live up to their potential, because the capacity of their customers is no longer at the same level. And so I'm kind of, I guess I'm seeing an issue where we need to be looking at this as like a political economy issue. Is like we need to have like the customer confidence to deploy these technologies, and really this is not what the people who are participating in wildfire resilience practices are really well equipped for in a lot of cases.
I think that's exactly spot on there, Tim. I think that that the TIFRSAC did serve as a place where vendors could come and really listen to the end user community, so that the gaps and some of the issues that they were facing could really be clearly understood in I don't know how to say it, but a non-confrontational or non-sales type environment. And I think that and I know from feedback from people that attended those meetings, from the vendor community, that they really appreciated being able to participate in those meetings. And the funny thing is that particular point of allowing vendors to the meeting was one of the sticking points with the Fire and Aviation Group. One of the things that was told to me was that, we're afraid that someone who attends a TIFRSAC meeting will be given an unfair advantage to someone that wasn't there, and then that they could file a protest. Well, that never happened in 19 years of hosting the TIFRSAC meetings. So I think that argument is a little bit spurious. But I did bring up these are some of the responses on the survey, and I'm going to sort these and pick out cherry pick some of the things that really jumped out at me. But that people are saying that we really need to have this forum where we can have this information exchange. And but I think picking the brains of the people that have attended the meetings in the past and would like to continue, or for new people to come in, we definitely need new people to come in, because we've lost a lot of people over the last year. We need to have this collaborative space where we can have these kind of conversations and understand where the fire management community is at, and to better service their needs. We have new technology. We have AI machine learning that's really coming to bear here, that we need to sort through this and make sure that we're using that effectively. I see Dave Jones has his hand up there.
Oh, hey, Everett. It's great, great presentation. Great to see you and hear the the feedback and comments. I think I think ESIP would be well served by either standing up a new cluster for something TIFRSAC related. I've been to, thanks to you, been invited to a number of TIFRSAC meetings in the past, had great presentations and interactions with folks at the meeting. And the one thing that I wish would have happened after that are people saying, yes, we want to learn more about this, about GeoCollaborate in my particular example. And I really didn't get that. And I think it was because of what you said before, and that is that there's this inertia and people like, oh yeah, that's kind of neat, but we're going to keep doing what we do. And I'm wondering if we were able to have a new cluster related to this. I don't know, Alicia, if we've ever, had subclusters, with this under that, but I don't think I think we can have a number of wildfire related type clusters as long as we describe, what would be the benefit to ESIP and what would be the benefit for people to experience this kind of meeting. It would give us an opportunity to meet every month. So, you could focus on technology and applications and things like that. Big question would be, as co-chair of the wildfire cluster and Douglas as the other co-chair and now president of ESIP. Congratulations, Douglas. And Tim, how, he may want to get more, involved at a co-chair level. I'd love your thoughts and feedback on whether, the wildfire cluster should kind of take this on, or we should start a new cluster focusing on technologies and how they can be applied. But I would really like to see the opportunity to put some of these technologies to work and demonstrate it. And I know, it takes investment by the group or the organization that wants to participate in it, but it could lead to some, very good things. It could lead to some, technology adoption or maybe technology testbed. I don't know if I know someone from Cal OES is on the line. If there's some sort of testbed that could come out of the ESIP cluster and be worked on, at Cal OES or any other state who might want to pull it in. I think that would be a really huge metric of success for, getting things done and not just saying, okay, that was great, let's wait till the next meeting, but to really engage people because there is a lot of good technology out there and a lot of good capability that is just not being put to work. Just feel like we need to do something to help that along.
Yeah, thanks, Dave. Those are all great comments. And I brought this slide back up here again as sort of showing, the notional how we might be able to better catalyze the work that's being done in the private sector and academia to better satisfy the needs of the end user community. And I've been laser focused on support to fire for 20 years, both on the unclassified side and the classified side. And I just know that there's a lot more that we can be doing. And, I want to keep pushing on this. And let's see, I did see a comment from Mary Ellen Miller about FireGuard. And Tim, if I could, I just wanted to kind of give her a clear answer on that. This is something that I've been fighting for years. So for the FireGuard product, there's actually classified data. And then from that classified data, they derive an unclassified product, which is basically, I wish I had an example that I could bring up real quickly here, but it's, if you look at I don't remember what the big fire was in California up around Lake Tahoe last year, but if you look at that fire that's going on for days and weeks, you'll see, if you look at the FireGuard data, that there's lots of lobes of of the polygons as the fire grows. So every 10 minutes, you're getting some new lobes drawn into the existing ones. And I don't know if that polygonal data, the unclassified polygonal data, is good enough if it's married up with other fire data, weather data, fuels, terrain, if that would be good enough to really start to get at some of the research interests. I don't think it is. And if that's the case, then we need to look at the classified data in some sort of classified facility. And I've been fighting this for years, trying to get people access to the FireGuard data so that we can do a better job of, since it is high frequency data, we should be able to use that to better understand fire behavior. Let's see, there was another point in there. The other thing is, as much as I love FireGuard and I'm proud of FireGuard, I will be glad the day that something comes along to supplant FireGuard, because FireGuard has been a nuisance in many different respects. The biggest nuisance is the fact that the raw data is classified. That's a big problem for me. It's also expensive to support the National Guard teams that are doing the analysis. And then you can't let people have access to the data. So anyway, that's kind of my soapbox about FireGuard. I would love for people to have access to that. And we can get people access to the polygons for fires that have happened in the past. But yeah, there's a number of people that I've talked to about that over the years, trying to figure out how to get them access to that information, or to have someone who's cleared work on that behind the wall.
I do work in a cleared facility. I don't typically work in the closed rooms, but we have a cleared facility. I was also wondering if you're familiar with NASA FireSense.
Oh yeah, yeah.
You should be a guest speaker.
I just talked to Mike Falkowski last week. He and I went to the Environmental Defense Fund workshop on the strategy for the FireSat that's being launched by the Earth Action Alliance. Did I get that right?
I think it's Earth Fire Alliance.
Earth Fire Alliance. Thank you. Thanks, Doug. Yeah, so I've known Mike for a while, and yeah, he and I have collaborated on a lot of different activities and so forth. So, and it's good to see you, Mary Ellen.
Thanks.
One thing I want to just swing back to is just the extent to which a lot of these issues have interesting intersections with the work of the wildfire commons. And one of the things specifically is this like a technical space where different data providers can provision assets into a shared computing environment that can potentially offer better data integration than elsewhere. And so I think, people should definitely take a look at that. I put in the top a link, and it's also in our notes, some of the front page of the Wildfire Commons project. But I think it's, an interesting space. And one of the things that's come up in discussion within that community has been the issue with vendor lockdown of certain data sets. And that being a similar, frankly, a parallel issue to the classification of data from FireGuard. In many cases, vendors have proprietary processes which they are trying to shield from their competitors, and making an appropriate place for the inspection of the data sets is actually a really complex issue.
It is. That's absolutely right, Tim. I was going to look through these couple comments here to see if there was any that jumped out at me. So the question was, if you're interested, please share your reasons or what you hope to gain from participating in the new forum. Remote sensing challenges from fuels to rapid detection and persistent surveillance remain challenges to deploy at scale. I want to benefit from the communities thinking about these challenges, and those are exactly the types of things that we were addressing at the TIFRSAC. As a NASA contractor, we see a lot of national opportunity and value for NASA to remain engaged. I am on the NASA FireSense team, and it would be a good idea to increase collaborations between end users, science, and engineering. So that's a nod to Mary Ellen Miller there. I'm looking for a professional forum to collaborate and address wildfire challenges in the 21st century. And I've worked with the fire community for 20 years, and I have to say that as much as I love the mission and supporting these folks, they're the most difficult group of people I've ever had to work with. And I understand their challenges. You know, I understand their reluctance to engage in new technology, but at some point, you know, I feel like the gear is starting to turn here, though, because a lot of people that are going into fire support now have always had technology in their hands. And so they're demanding these kind of things, whereas, you know, the older generations, I put my category too, you know, they would say things like, well, you know, your fancy technology isn't going to put fires out. It's people, you know, with shovels and, you know, things like that. And I was like, well, we can tell you where there's a better place to move your shovel to, or to move your bulldozer. So anyway, Steve Ambrose.
Yeah, Everett. Yeah, I know we talked a little bit about the US Geo aspect of
Right.
something like the TIPRSAC. I'm making progress in terms of creating an industry collaboration or coordination council with US Geo under ACT-IAC. If you're familiar with that group, the ACT IAC group is an industry group that works with government and making good progress in the sense, I don't know if you know AJ Mehta, he's I think Director of Observations at Weather Service, but he's the US Geo representative for NOAA, and he has gone to the other agencies, USGS, I imagine, and NASA, to look at my proposal under ACT-IAC for this industry group. And I don't know if it fits for like a TIFRSAC replacement, but certainly it's going to be Earth observation related. It's going to allow industry to work with USGO, work with the government in a closer collaboration. They've invited me. Wade Price, who's the Secretary of USGO, he's getting an invitation out so I can go in and talk with them about scoping the relationship this industry group will have with USGO. They're very excited about it. AJ has been very supportive for the last 6 months at least. We've gotten to the stage of a good proposal from ACT-IAC, and it'll be a membership group, of course, that's going to be, you know, a tiered membership fee, of course, based on the size of the industry, size of the company, just the way ACT-IAC works for their regular memberships. But if they're already a membership of ACT-IAC, you've already automatically become a member of the GEO Collaboration Council. But yeah, it might be a way, and you know, not to cover everything for your mission there, what you've done with the TIFRSAC for years. As I know, I've been involved with that for many years myself with the TIFRSAC when I was at NASA headquarters. But I think it might be a venue to be able to communicate better with government. May not, you know, maybe some of the same people that, of course, reaching into the agencies. Of course, I knew Lawrence Friedel was part of USGO. I don't know if he still is the representative for USGO, but people like that will be able to get more. Will have more of an inside track between the industry collaboration, the industry thoughts, the industry ideas. Those things that you know they worried about in terms of advantages for other industry. This industry group will give industry a level playing field where that kind of even potential of protests and you know companies getting some advantage will be a more level playing field under ACT-IAC.
Right. Yes, and thanks, Steve, for bringing up the USGO option here. You know, that's something that I had up there with ESIP, and I know Wade Price pretty well, and Lawrence Friedel as well. I don't know if he's like you say. I don't know if he's still working with USGO, but Yeah, that's certainly I'm going to look in, and I don't remember having done any research on the ACT-IAC, but I'll do some research there. And if, let's just keep the conversation going on that, because I think that that's, I think that there's potential benefit there. So,
Yeah, I'll keep you posted, in terms of it could be a working group, a subgroup of the main group, to cover the wildfire earth observation topics like you have dealt with for the past 20 some years. Yeah.
right, right. Yeah, I have to say I was really disappointed with my own agency's approach to this, and but my supervisor at the time said, look, they're the end user. If they want us to, to close up shop here, then we need to walk that way. So I think it was very short-sighted. I think it was very personality driven. And we had for many years, Vince and I had a great relationship with the people out in Boise, the fire directors, and lots of positive engagement and enthusiasm from them to help support their mission. So I think that kind of got lost with retirements and some new people coming on board that were perhaps more turf sensitive. So be that as it may, I think now that I'm on the outside, I can follow up with some other options that will get us back to where we need to be.
I think procedurally, as far as with relation to the wildfire cluster, we have, I think there's room within this cluster to organize here, but I would also point to the January meeting where I think that there's opportunity to start developing a meeting session proposal that we could potentially have multiple proposals. There was the session that was organized through the wildfire cluster, but there was another kind of AI oriented active fire modeling session that happened on Friday morning at the summer meeting. And the January meeting, the sessions are 90 minutes, but I think if you had content and you kind of had the community practice kind of developing, I think it would actually be a very appropriate place to have a focus meeting on TIFRSAC issues.
Right, right.
And I mean, I think many of us would participate, in potentially several. And I also think that there's like these different user communities of, I think of the pre-fire, post-fire planning and the beneficial fire communities as actually having these like different demand personas than like the largest incident responses that, and actually I think as we get into, growing towards more social fire adaptation and fire resilience as a strategy, I think that more of those strategies are going to need advanced remote sensing decision support tools. And so I think there's actually some really interesting opportunities emerging that are actually kind of finding non-traditional customers in a sense.
Right, right. I had a thought there, but it kind of slipped away. But I really believe that that there is a need for this type of engagement, and there's lots of very bright, creative people in the remote sensing community across the federal government, the state governments, and in academia, in the private sector that are very interested in developing solutions. But I kind of feel like right now that there's this vacuum where the vendors are they're kind of closed out, and particularly during this time of disruption of capacity, that it's even more difficult for that. I've been talking to a number of vendors since I left the government and providing advice and guidance to them, and it's really hard to, even in traditional times, knowing the lay of the land and knowing what the footing is underneath you to provide advice is one thing, but when everything's changing so rapidly and people are leaving and no one knows what they're supposed to be doing, it's much harder, I think, so looking for proposal opportunities and things like that. I think we need some sort of guiding force to help with that collaboration and communication. So is there any, oh, let's see. I see one new. I'm actually going to put my, I'm selfishly going to put my QR code back up here, but let's see. I'm reading Arash Rad's comment there. I'd love to hear your perspective on which products derive from fine-tuning foundational AI models for Earth surface analysis you consider most impactful and readily integratable into the operational wildfire management workflow. I've been talking to a couple vendors about just the active fire piece, and looking at thermal images. There's when you have two-channel thermal sensors, it's pretty easy to do the fire discrimination based on the dynamic noise ratios in those channels to really, quote unquote, see the fire. So I feel like the fire mapping piece where you're drawing points, lines, and polygons in a GIS environment, you have to train the system on what the rules are in terms of lumping and splitting groups of clusters and things like that, groups of pixels that are hot pixels. Then based on the dynamic range, is this the areas of intense heat? I think that that's all very doable. And I'm sure that there's a number of folks that are out there working on that right now. I started Federal GeoAI group last year, and that one's going pretty well. And really my driving force for setting that up was to support the fire community. But so I'm not sure if I answered your question, Arash, there, but I think that the predictive fire behavior modeling is going to be a much tougher nut to crack because there's the three primary inputs, the fuels, the terrain, and the weather, and having a really good handle on those and having sufficient time slices on a fire to be able to forensically analyze and develop, for the system to be trained on how the fire is behaving and why it's behaving that way. I think that that's a much tougher nut to crack there. Any other questions?
Well, we're coming to the end of the hour, and I wanted to just point to what we have planned coming up next is so we have a tentative, I can't announce the September meeting, but we have an October meeting, which is is going to be a presentation by Amanda Mulder, who has a very interesting PhD thesis on media representation of wildfire. And this is actually following on conversations I've had with many of you in Seattle about the success of things like watch duty and this communication of data science, wildfire data science to the public. And actually there's some specific stories about how it intersects with public policy that we're going to be pursuing hopefully in the next two meetings. After that, we're looking for the next relevant talk, and so I think reach out to Douglas, myself, or Dave to kind of, if you have any ideas for booking content, because I think there's we're definitely trying to build a community based on who kind of comes, and hopefully we will be cementing these relationships in a manner that strengthens our community as a whole.
Well, thanks for inviting me today, Tim. This was a great meeting, and really appreciate the feedback and the questions. So thank you for having me here today.
Thank you. Yeah, we really appreciate it. And it's I absolutely think what you did at the Forest Service was incredibly important work.
Thanks.
Yeah, and Everett, this is Dave. I just want to say that hopefully, I mean, if we meet once a month here, and I would love to continue the conversation on just finding a place, finding a home for, what was the TIFRSAC. I mean, your experience and your network and all of that you bring to the table, I think could really, a lot of people within ESIP could benefit. A lot of people that are outside of ESIP that may want to just start to taste a little bit of ESIP would be a great opportunity for them to join these meetings. I mean, these are open. You don't have to be an ESIP member to come into the wildfire cluster meetings. And, the whole idea of trying to get something together that's agile, that can help steer technologies or do test beds of technology, working together or whatever, I think is just desperately needed. And nobody seems to be doing it. I mean, I know that NOAA was putting the wildfire test bed together, but I think it was focused inward at NOAA, and what NOAA is doing. I have never seen an external type of test bed to bring different technologies together. I know it needs funding, it needs support to do it, but you can probably do it with stakeholders that come together that want to see their technologies and capabilities highlighted a little bit more. And then you can put it together in a presentation at ESIP or AGU or AMS or, National Wildland Fire Conference, all these places.
Right.
So I'm hoping that, you can come along with us for at least a while and see if we can't figure this out, because I know a lot of people are consumers of information and want to just take it and run with it and see what's happening. But it sure would be great to see how ESIP could be a home for, the TIFRSAC activities.
Right. Well, thanks, Dave. I did want to mention that I just checked my my survey, and during the meeting, 5 people have responded to the survey. So thank you for that.
That's great. That's great.
That's 1/3 of the people here, so that's a pretty good response rate.
Yeah, no kidding. I got
tell-
thrown into the spam folder for most of USDA, so that kind of cut into my return a little bit.
That means, Everett, you should maybe put that QR code on a bumper sticker on your car or something. So
And we can always send it to the ESIP all email list, as well as include that in the weekly
Yep.
ESIP newsletter that everyone, there's pretty high opening rates for that newsletter. So we're happy to help you with that.
yeah. No, this is great. Well, Tim, thanks for getting Everett here to the meeting. It's awesome. I'd really like to thank you again, Everett, for presenting and sharing this information. And I don't know, Alicia, is there anything that you have from the ESIP side? Is Alicia still here? I don't see.
Alicia has left, and so
Okay.
the one announcement will be sign up for the highlights webinar. And Albert, we can always talk about if we want to set up maybe a working group within the wildfire cluster for the TIFRSAC specifically, because that's one way we can do, just using existing cluster, but bringing people into the cluster, have a specific focus group working on the TIFRSAC as well.
Okay, and that was Douglas, right? That just
Yes,
spoke?
right. Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay, well, thanks, Douglas.
Yeah, that's great. Awesome. Well, thanks so much, everybody. Really appreciate it. Thanks, Tim, for setting this up, and hope we were able to capture more notes and stuff by resurrecting the notes document. All these good things happening. So thanks, everybody. We'll see you next month.
Take care.
Bye.